Okay, so pairwise comparison method. How do we do it? So we're trying to decide the winner of this election using our fourth method, pairwise comparison. So what that means, it's the one-to-one comparison, which we've kind of looked at before. You might think, you might be feeling like, hey, look, we already did this, didn't we? Like the A against B. We did. We looked at it when we were trying to figure out if something violated Condorcet. Remember, that was the French guy? And he's, you know, one-to-one comparisons. He said, look, if anybody wins all the one-to-one comparisons, they should win the election. That's one of our fairness criteria. Yes, that is one of our fairness criteria. In fact, if it's helpful to you, I could pop it in right up here for you. Let me show you. But I don't want you to confuse that with the actual voting method. Those are two very similar but slightly different things. Let me see if I can find it here. Yes, I think it's this one. No, it's not. I think it's this one. Yes, it is. All right. So yeah, there it is. So we do have a similar thing here with the Condorcet criterion, which says if any candidate wins one-to-one comparisons between it and any other, meaning wins them all, then that candidate should be winner. Yeah. And so we've looked at that a couple of times. We've said, hey, look, A wins all his one-to-ones. A should be the winner, or B or whatever, you know. That's a fairness idea, right? That's different than a voting method. They're very similar, though. They have almost the same thing. Everybody's seeing those differences. We have 4 voting methods: plurality, board account, plurality with elimination, and now pairwise comparison. And we have 4 ideas of fairness. They have some overlap, and this is a big overlap. Condorcet is basically pointing at pairwise comparison. All right, let's go. Let's do it. So we're going to do the method of voting pairwise comparison. How does it work? Well, yeah, you break everybody into pairs, like a tennis tournament, right? I don't know if anybody knows, the Australian Open's going on right now. They're matching up in pairs, and they're battling on the tennis courts in Australia where the weather's warm right now. So we're going to match all the candidates up one-to-one and see who wins each round. And basically, here's the way it's going to go. If you win your competition, you get 1 point. If you lose, you get 0. If you tie, it's just like hockey. Anybody know how hockey works? What happens if you tie in hockey? How many points do you get? You get a half a point, I believe. Isn't that? I think that I'm not a big hockey expert, but I think I remember that much. So you get a half a point. So that's what we're going to do. 1 point for a victory, 0 for a loss, half point for a tie. I'll show you as we go. So let's start. Now this one has already laid out the maps for us. It's got A, see right here? It's got A versus B, A versus C, A versus D. And then it goes then it starts with B versus C, B versus D, then B's done, then C versus D. We've laid that out for ourselves before, and you may have to on some, they're not always going to give you this setup. You might have to do that yourself. All right, this one does, so I'll go through it. Here we go. Let's start with the first one, which is A versus B. So how do you do A versus B? Well, remember when you're matching 2 people in one-to-one matchup, you get rid of everybody else, don't you? So I'm going to get rid of everybody else. So if I'm just doing A versus B here, then let's just get rid of C and D. I don't care about C and D. I'm just doing, suppose C and D dropped out of the election. That's the idea with the one-to-one. We're just saying, hey, you people, you voters, what is the will of the people concerning A and B only? Who do you like better? If it just came down to A and B, if C and D dropped out of the election and it just came down to A and B, who would you like better, A or B? Well, let's take a look. We drop C and D out of the election and we say, all right, these 37 voters, who would they prefer, A or B?
A.
Yeah, they like A better. So I'll give 37 to, or I'll put preferred A, 37 to A. I don't know why they put it that order, but whatever. And then these 17, who do they like better?
B.
B, right? And we just keep going. These 31, they have A higher. So where's A up here? Wait, am I getting confused? 37, 17. 31 is A. Oh, wait. This is so confusing.
Yeah.
This is what's confusing. The end of this, I'm going to get rid of this right here. Votes where A is preferred. So A is preferred. So who liked A? The 37. There we go. That was confusing for me. And then the 31, they liked A. That having that other letter in there threw me off. A is preferred. And then B, how many like B? The 17 like B. Okay, and these 15, they like A. So that's up here. And the 28, they have B higher, huh? 28 have, well, what am I doing? I'm having some trouble. 28, B is down here.
And these 13, they like A higher. So add those up. Use your calculator. This is going to be a pretty, well, look, I can, oh no, they want the actual numbers, don't they? 37. I was going to say, I can tell who won, but they want the numbers. I'm getting 96, and here I'm getting whatever, 45. Okay, so there's how that went. Now next, then you got to do them all. This is pretty darn tedious. This is one of the really long methods like board account is. So A versus C next. So again, I'm going to cross out this part that confuses me. A or C. So now I'm just doing A and C. So I'm going to get rid of what? If I'm just doing A and C, I'm going to get rid of B and D, right? So B and D are out. B and D are out. I'm just doing A and C. So these 37, A. These 17, they have C higher. These 31, A. These 15, oops, come on. These 15, A. These 28, C. And these 13, C. And so you got to add those up. Use your calculator. Mm-hmm. 83, and then 17, 28, 13, 58. Okay. All right, we got to keep going. This is terribly long and slow. They do all these one-to-one matchups. Okay, so next I'm going to do A versus D. And I'll do a different color here. So A versus D. And A or D. So if I'm just doing A and D, then I'm going to drop out, what's that, B and C, right? Get rid of B and C. B and C is out. And okay, just A and D. Here we go. These 37, they like D. The pen is not working. 37 for D. These 17 like A. These 31 like A. These 15 like A. And these 28 like A. A's killing it. And these 13 like A. There's a lot of liking A here. All right. Add all that up. 17, 31, 15, 28, 13. I'm getting 104, and then that one's just 37. All right, so I'm halfway. Let's keep going. Next, I'm going to do B versus C. So, okay, B versus C. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so B or C. If I'm doing B and C, only B and C, I'm going to get rid of A and D. Get rid of A and D. Get rid of A and D. A and D. Okay, so here we go. How many? So these 37, they like B. These 17 like C. These 31 like B. These 15 like B. These 28 like B. And these 13 like C. And I can do this one, 30. It's 30, but what's the other one? 37, 31, 15. Use my calculator. 111, okay? 2 more to go. I got to do B and D next. So B and D. Okay. So B and D. Yeah. So B or D. So if I'm doing B and D, I'm going to drop out A and C. So get rid of A and C. Like that. All right. These 37, they like D. And then kind of go back and forth here. These 17 like B. These 31 like B. These 15 like D, actually. And these 28 like B. And these 13 prefer B as well. Add those up, add those up. 31 plus 28 plus 15. So I'm getting 89 on my calculator. And the other one, 37 plus 15, is 52. All right. And lastly, there's one more. I got to do C and D, and then we're done with this one. So, all right. So C and D. So if I'm going to come down here, let me get rid of this because it confuses me. So C and D, C or D is preferred. So C and D, I'm going to drop out A and B. Get rid of A and B. Okay, so these 37 like D. These 17 like C. These 31 like D. 31 like D. These 15 like D as well. These 28 like C. And these 13 like C. It's kind of a close one there. All right. So calculate it. 17, 28. It's 13. I'm getting 58. And the other one, 37 plus 31 plus 15, getting 83. Okay, so now I just did all of the battles, right? All the one-to-one pairwise. It's called pairwise because you're breaking them into pairs, 2 at a time, right? So now we have to determine down here, they're going to say tally the results. Okay, so what do they mean by that? Well, I'm going to come over here now, and I'm going to say who won each of these elections. So in this first election, 96 votes, A won it, right? In the second election, in the second one-to-one matchup, pair here, 83 again for A. In the third one, 104 again for A. And then now we come down to B and C, 111 for B. And next one, 89 was again B. And finally, C versus D, 83 for D. So there's how it went. So how many times did A win? 3. So A gets 3 points. How many times did B win? Twice for 2 points. How many times did C win? None. And D won once. And so there's the points. Now, again, if there was a tie, if there was ever a tie, each person gets a half a point, just like hockey. For a tie, they get a half a point. We didn't have any ties. So for example, if C and D had tied on this last one, I would have given C a half a point and D a half a point. But it didn't happen that way. So in the end then, who's the winner of this election? A. And so I'm going to circle A or bubble in A. A is the winner. So that is the method of pairwise comparisons. We broke them off. So they're not always going to lay out the pairs for you. They might just give you the chart at the top and say, do pairwise comparison. But as soon as you see pairwise, you go, oh, I got to break them all into pairs. Remember, we've done that before. Remember how that works. Let me just run over what they did. You just start with A, and you just go AB, AC, AD. You start with A, and you go right on down the line until you can't go any further with A. And then you start with B, and you go BC, BD. Remember, you don't need to go backwards. Huh? I don't need to go BA because that's already been covered back here. And so you start with A, go A, B, A, C, A, D, and start with B, B, C, B, D, and then last one, C, D. Question?
So what if there's a tie?
Like an overall tie? Like what if 2 people have 2 victories or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, then we would just select that. That's one of the options down here. They would say there is a tie. You would just choose that option. That is, in fact, one possibility. Good question.